Представьтесь, пожалуйста, коротко.
Я Роден Рихард. Проработал в Kohtlском шахтерском парке 59,5 лет. Поначалу был...
Здесь был ручной труд.
This all used to be manual labor. They were separating shale from other types of rock on this conveyor. It was mostly women who worked in this preparation plant. So all these mountains that we have around us are the work of women.
The landscapes of northeastern Estonia resemble Ukraine's Donbas region. Small towns of typical Soviet architecture and power plant chimneys. The main language you hear spoken on the streets is Russian. This is where lies the state border. As we enter Narva, our cell phone operator, quote, welcomes us in Russia.
First, I tell people how an underground mine operates in general. Almost all of our machines can be turned on, so I can show people how the equipment works.
The tour guide at this Estonian mine, which was converted into a museum, is called Yury. He has worked in mining for almost all his life. And now, as he approaches retirement age, he has decided to tell tourists about the mine.
It is officially considered that this mine was opened in 1937. Since then, over 48 million ton has been extracted, as you can see here. This mine could have worked for another 3-4 years, but the technology used here was so old that it wouldn't be efficient.
The mine museum Kohtla is located not far from Narva, in Ida-Virumaa. A quarter of its population work in the energy sector. The region brings in 16% of the national GDP. However, the standards of living here is lower than average in Estonia. Tour guide YURY SALA offers visitors to the museum a historic perspective on the situation in the region. He tells people about how the mines were opened. Today's reality is slightly different. A lot of the businesses in Ida-Virumaa created during Soviet times have closed.
There was a period when the official unemployment rate was 18%, virtually every fifth person. Unofficially, it was twice as big. Now the official rate is 8%.
Almost 60,000 people live in Narva, 53,000 of whom are ethnic Russians. 87% of the population here speak Russian. The city was almost completely destroyed during the Second World War. Migrants from Russia and other Soviet republics settled here, and most of them have never really felt a connection with Estonia. Narva held a referendum on independence at the start of the 1990s.
They were calling for the creation of a separate economic territory here, which would have included Narva, Sillamäe and Kohtla, big cities for economics. They wanted to create a separate currency and services, all for the people in this region.
If we remember ourselves where we were in terms of inter-ethnic relations in early 1990s, with Narva holding a separatist referendum threatening to separate from Estonia, when the Estonian government couldn't even enter the territory of Narva because the roads were blocked. There were still Russian soldiers in Estonia at this time, time. And if Russia and then President Boris Yeltsin had wanted to give all these separatists access to weapons, then the same things as what happened in Ukraine would have happened here.
After the pseudo-referendum, the Estonian government tightened their policy towards its Russian-speaking minority. From then on, in order to receive citizenship, people had to take tests in Estonian history, law and language. Those who refused were issued with a grey, non-citizen passport.
My driver has a great passport. He won't accept Estonian citizenship because you can travel to both Europe and Russia without a visa with a great passport, whereas I have to apply for a visa to go to Russia.
39% of Narva's inhabitants have either Russian or the grey Estonian passports. From an economic point of view, this has turned this region into a slightly separate territory. People from Narva can either work in small businesses in their own country or in the neighboring Russian cities Ivangorod or St. Petersburg. Every day 6,000 people pass through this customs point from both sides. Many of them come with these trolleys. Residents of Narva carry goods to sell in Ivangorod, while the Russians carry the sanctioned produce that they bought here.
Мы нарвские, но мы едем в Россию сейчас.
Мы украинское телевидение, которое делает репортаж о городе, о Нарве. Расскажите, как вам живется?
Где?
Здесь.
Не буду говорить.
Почему?
Не знаю. Потому что не хочу на политику говорить.
А что везете, если не секрет?
Нет, не секрет. Я везу кое-что из косметики.
На продажу?
Ну, да.
Скажите, а что вы везете? Что-то на продажу?
Да не, мы себе продукты. Вкусное все тут.
А вы из России?
Покупаем. Да, мы из России.
Да. А что покупаете в основном?
Ну, молочные продукты, мясо, ну, как бы заводской упаковки. Ну и так в основном, да, все, что разрешают. Все, что у нас дорого или не во всех магазинах.
Здравствуйте. Скажите, пожалуйста, сколько можно везти через границу товара? Какая норма?
Без комментариев.
Почему?
Без комментариев.
А что везете?
Книжки детям.
Что там снимаешь?
А что везете?
Мебель, шкафчики. Родственникам надо собрать.
But how does Estonia deal with the economic situation in this industrial region? It was trying to revitalize the closed-down business and give them a new lease of life. The mine museum Kohtla is a good example of this.
There was a small township here, around 1,000 people, and the township administration launched the restoration process. The company that previously owned the mine, ETTI Energia, helped it in. Later they put together projects and renovated it. All of this using the money from the European Union.
However, Ida-Virumaa's reintegration is not just an economic issue for Estonia. In 2014, after Russia's intervention in Ukraine, Estonian politicians and civil society started using the Narva is next hashtag in the hope of once again drawing attention to the problem of the large Russian-speaking region in northern eastern Estonia.
Crimea was a wake-up call for the Estonian government. Attention, attention, if you don't start integrating the city of Narva and the Russian-speaking population of Estonia, then you'll be facing with the same situation as maybe not Crimea, but Eastern Ukraine. More than half of our budget goes towards Estonian language education. We offer everyone this opportunity, and there are various methods. There are courses, language clubs, language cafes. Next year we are opening new Estonian language centers, one in Narva and one in Tallinn.
Relaxing the policy towards the Russian-speaking minority was one of the conditions for Estonia's EU membership. For this to happen, the state created the Integration Foundation on the first day of negotiations with the EU. Its director, IRENE KÄOSAAR, tells us about the foundation and explains that the main problem with integration is that it has to happen on both sides.
Our Russian-speaking or whatever language-speaking non-Estonian population are often faced with the issue that they want to integrate, but Estonia seems not to want. As in, you do your thing and we'll do ours. You learn Estonian first of all and then we'll see. But to learn a language, one must have the motivation to do so. They need to be the will to enter this society.
Most Estonians have treated Narva residents as outsiders for 2 decades, and vice versa. KÄOSAAR refers to this as segregation, explaining that the root of the problem is education, and unfortunately, Estonia has not been able to deal with it yet. Narva College was supposed to partially help resolve this problem. This is the first university in the city. It was opened in the late 1990s to give the Russian-speaking youth the chance to receive a quality education.
From its start, this college was intended for the Russian-speaking youth to prepare new generation teachers for Russian schools and to give the youngsters of Narva an opportunity to receive higher education, because it was practically impossible for them to get a place at Tartu or Tallinn universities due to high competition. So the social-economical marginalization would have been even more pronounced was it not for this college.
For a long time, Ida-Virumaa existed outside Estonia's cultural and media sphere. St. Petersburg is closer to here than Tallinn. The only available Russian-language TV channels to the residents were Russian channels. Their influence is still felt here today.
Почему завтра?
Потому что мы не общаемся. Не любит никто вас.
А откуда вы черпаете информацию о событиях в Украине?
Откуда? С России. С России? С телевизором.
А какие каналы вы смотрите?
Так и Россия, Останкино. Что там люди творят? Друг друга загрызть готовы. Это нормально? Мне кажется, что нет. А как вы считаете?
There was this paradigm in Estonian society: let all the Russians learn Estonian, let them watch Estonian TV channels, and everything will be alright. But for some reason Russians learned Estonian badly and used other information sources, Russian channels. And there would still be this dispute if Ukraine hadn't have happened.
Journalist Yury Nikolaev says that the first community Russian language channel in Estonia only appeared after the start of the war in Ukraine. Again, it was set up as part of the integration program for Russian-speaking Estonians. The channel is called ETV Plus and has operated since 2015.
The appearance of this Russian language channel gave the Russian community the opportunity to get on the air. A very large circle of Russian people have never been on television. ETV Plus helped legitimize many different viewpoints. Maybe they are poorly perceived by Estonians, but at least they have a platform now. And that's a good thing.
Estonian speakers also watch ETV Plus, and in Yury Nikolaev's opinion, this is mutual integration.
Estonians are interested in what is going on with the Russians. What are they thinking? How do they look at these things? People from Narva watch their own programs, and they watch news programs. They recognize me on the streets. They come up to me, propose topics, so people watch it.
There are no talks of banning Russian channels in Estonia. Competition is the country's media policy.
Our people who are Russian-speaking love their freedom and values, similarly as those people who speak these freedoms and values in Estonian language. Language is not the primer of your mindset. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you are legally in this country, you have all the rights in this country, what people have in this country. For example, you don't have to be even citizen to vote in local elections. It's common European norm, and we do abide by it. Estonia is a normal, usual European country with a normal, usual European policy towards its people. And this applies to everybody in this country.
Over the last few years, the Estonian government has been actively investing in integrative cultural projects in Ida-Virumaa. and Narva is planning to compete for the title of European Capital of Culture 2024. Angelika Stekalov, the administrator of the new theatre center in Narva, takes us on a tour of the theatre and explains the language policy. All performances need to take place in Russian or with a simultaneous translation.
We're just preparing for our premiere. The main director, Dmitry Yegorov, is from Russia. The actors are Estonian. It's a documentary show. All interviews were made with Estonian musicians who were famous in Soviet times. How has their fate turned out in this era? Who are they now? And they are famous or not? One of Wabalava's policies is that everything we produce in Russian too. The entire play can be done in Russian, or we just have interpreters on the scene. We practically share the building with the Estonian television and radio broadcaster. ETV Plus and Radio 4 are actually moving here too. I think they have 5 employees, and those of them in Tallinn, I think, will be coming here once or twice a week and broadcast directly from here, from the 3rd floor. So they have a fully fledged and fully equipped office. They can do talk shows there, they have an allocated studio hall for it.
The president of Estonia has relocated the capital to Narva 3 times already. She sets up a temporary office here, holds dozens of meetings a day, attends performances and concerts, talks with people on the streets.
It's not a tactic, in no way. I'm simply following Estonian civil society. So we've seen really thriving civil society action in Tallinn, a wonderful, vibrant, cultural atmosphere has been developed. And this is all the doing of people of that region. Estonian people, our civil society. And when they said that they are going to try to recreate something what they have done in Tallinn, Kalamaja, in Narva, then I said, that's so wonderful that if you really pull it off, I will be with you for a certain period of time. No, I'm just keeping my promise because they pulled it off.
The government suddenly decided to move the entire Academy of Internal Affairs to Narva. They suddenly found money to build new student accommodation for the college. Now they are building a swimming pool. The president presides here from time to time. This all rolled in after Crimea. You understand how it happened?
How has this influenced the city?
Very positively, because people in Narva suddenly felt like they were important, that the government is really looking to that side.
I really wanted to serve under the primate, not just help the bishop, but to serve under the primate. It has been my dream since childhood, and it is what I aspire to. I prayed to God, help me, I want to serve. You know, as a small child, please.
Father DANIIL Doronin was the subdeacon at the St. Jonas Monastery in Kiev. He studied at the music department of Dragomanov University, but he has lived in Narva for the last 3 years. He came here by invitation of Bishop Lazarus, because the cathedral needed a priest.
We have a very difficult history. There are several photos of how this cathedral looked after the Second World War. In this way, it's symbolic. If the cathedral withstood the Second World War, then it will stand until the second coming of Christ.
Estonia is a mostly Lutheran country. The Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate only have the majority in areas where there is concentrated number of Russian speakers. However, as Father DANIIL tells us, not many locals attend services. The renewal of autocephaly for the Estonian Orthodox Church in the 1990s happened almost without any trouble from the Estonian society. The Ukrainian Church followed the same path. Father DANIIL comments on Ukraine receiving the Thomas of autocephaly with caution.
I pray to God that everything happens peacefully, that the unity of the Church is not destroyed because of politics or some other factors. Christ's Church has no borders, no nationality. It doesn't have any other factors because brothers and sisters are brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter where.
The church where Father DANIIL serves can be used as an example of religious tolerance. During the Second World War, they allowed Lutheran services to be held here.
During the war, when all the churches were destroyed, the Lutheran community gathered in the basement of the Orthodox cathedral.
Pastor Volodymyr is the head priest of the Lutheran Alexandros Cathedral in Narva. A bomb hit the dome of the cathedral during the Second World War. The community tried to restore it in the 1990s, but they could not deal with the huge debt of 2.5 million euros. The church was put up for sale, but the state helped buy it and bring the parishioners back.
which is the main street you walk down here in Narva, Alexander Pushkin Street. We have everything, everything is fine. You can go into any shop and speak Russian, you can go to the local authorities, you can speak Russian. No one will harm you, no one will do anything to you.
Do you feel like the Ukraine scenario is possible here?
This question has been floating around since 2014. A lot of correspondents came here, they asked people. There was only one result, most likely no.
Most of the people we spoke to agree that the state policy regarding the Russian-speaking minority was quite tough in the 1990s. But they also know that in terms of the threat, this was justified.
Of course, a lot of damage was done to the process of interethnic relations then in the 90s. But I see that we can overcome this with the new generation.
Times have changed, and so has their approach to the issue. Estonians now use the example of Narva to demonstrate that speaking Russian is not a political stance.
В целом, как вам живется в Нарве?
Хорошо, очень даже, замечательно. Самый хороший город, я считаю. Мне очень нравится. Я думаю, что и многим нравится в Нарве жить.
Хотели бы, чтобы Нарва присоединилась к России?
4 я вам дала. Не, мы хотим жить в Эстонии. Пожалуйста, всего доброго.
Как вам живется здесь, в Нарве?
Хорошо, я люблю свою родину. Я здесь родилась.
Это ваша родина?
Да.
Вот бытует мнение, что многие жители этого региона смотрят в сторону России, ориентируются на Россию и хотели бы, возможно, чтобы регион присоединился к России.
Нет, мы такого не высказывали. Не надо нам это разногласия такие раздувать. Достаточно, что у вас
с Украины ваши все прибежали уже сюда.
Да, нет,
запланили весь Сталин.
Они вон это самое правильно сюда. Не. Мы не хотели бы такое. Все удобства.
Бесплатно есть.
Да. Автобусы бесплатные.
Если бы изменили бы, то чтобы только бесплатная медицина у нас была.
In my opinion, people who have not found themselves here or don't see their future in this country have left by now. This feeling of being in your homeland, you either have it or you don't. And the people who used to see Estonia their homeland have stayed here and made it in their country. There was strong economic growth when Estonia joined the European Union. Our GDP grew by 20% every year. It also became easy for Russians to live here. They got jobs and their children started to go to Estonian schools. I also have links to Russia. I was born there, but I no longer feel like it's my home. I've lived here my whole life, and my goal is to help develop this city. And people like me are basically the majority here. What can Russia promise Russians here? They live well. They have European lifestyles. Yes, maybe their standards of living are lower than for Estonians, but they already know that they live better than people in Ivangorod. They see that every day, they understand that. And what can Russia offer them? Nothing.
A week spent in Ida-Virumaa has convinced us that comparing it to Crimea or even eastern Ukraine would be inappropriate. The Estonian government made it impossible for Russians to destabilize the area from the inside, while the Estonian president, answering the question whether Narva would be next, confidently replies, "Yes, Narva will be Estonians' next success story."